My name is Nlli Bostani. I lead the Human Experience Management Value Advisory at SAP, and I'm very honored to be here with you today. Before we proceed, I wanted you to look at the future, looking back at today. It's a short, silent video about a story of a robot, a human, and an AI that were tasked to hire the best talent out there. And I want you to tell me how much of this is a reality today. Is this a reality today? Yes? Exactly so. And what do you think is the role that AI versus human versus robots are playing to hire the best talent, since we're all coming from the HR world? So maybe to make it simple, AI actually was analyzing the jobs. They were also matching the candidates to the jobs. The human being was actually conducting the interviews and maintaining the relationship with the candidates and being the face of the organization. And the robot was processing everything that can be automated, meaning scheduling interviews, releasing offer letters, and so on and so forth. So this is the world we live in. But I want to now take us a step back to understand really what were the forces that were shaping the future of work prior to COVID, okay? There were many things happening in our world. We talk about the fourth industrial revolution. We talk about the importance of big data to economies and to organizations and the need it was creating for new kind of roles. So to deal with the 2.5 quintillion bytes of data that are generated daily, we need data analysts, we need data scientists, we need people who are able to architect and make sense out of this data. We say data is the new oil. It's also about technology. We saw robots, we saw AI. So everything that can be automated will be automated. And this will actually change the nature of roles. It will create new ones. Some of them will be disappearing, but it also provides a whole world of opportunities. We're also looking at what was happening in our world from a connectivity perspective. So just if you think about it, on an average, any one of us checks their phone on a daily basis 150 times. Every second, 127 new devices are connected to the internet. And in 2020, every second, 81,000 searches were done on Google. So this kind of speed and connectivity that we were experiencing in our private world is also brought and expected to be the same speed and efficiency in our work professional world. And so there was a bit of a merge between the two. Then we were also looking at the demographic shift. So on one side, there was a lot of talks about millennials and the expectation that by 2025, 75% of our workforce will be made of millennials. But on the other spectrum, there is an increase in life expectancy that is at least making the time we spend working longer. So how do we also redefine our careers, knowing that we will not retire, for example, at the age of 60 anymore? And of course, the importance of diversity and the shifts in the labor market that is making also bringing this complexity as well to the workplace. And here we're talking about the complexity of how we do business, how, let's say, our customer and our employee expectations are shifting, but also how our labor market is shifting. In the past, our definition of talent used to be really around our full-time employees. But today in the gig economy, it's actually need to be broader, and that also brings that complexity to managing the workforce. And lastly, it's actually the rapid pace of change. You know, in the 1960s, Fortune 500 companies used to stay for 70 years on average, but today their average tenure is 15 years. And the ones that are the most successful are not those who are, let's say, the biggest or the largest, but those that are able to best adapt to change. And so all of this was happening, or all of these shifts and trends we were looking at before the pandemic, and then of course the pandemic hit, and many of these were completely accelerated. We have seen how governments, how businesses had to shift their operating model overnight, really to provide services to their customers, to their citizens through multiple digital channels, to support their employees working remotely, to really rethink business in a completely new, different context. Even, let's say, in the retail section, a lot of the organizations were able to achieve only in 5 years their target for, in 5 weeks, their target for 5 years in terms of their digital growth. And what this has taught us is that how quickly things can change, and how important it is for organizations to be agile and resilient, to be able to adapt quickly and fast, because there is no sign that things will slow down. This is a study from the World Economic Forum. It looked at the job survey in 2020, and one of the biggest, as I mentioned, impact of the pandemic, it actually confirms that acceleration of digitization of the work processes, automation of tasks, and so on, was one big chunk of its impact. But the other one is the refocus on reskilling and upskilling the workforce. And we're going to see a little bit more why this is so important. Now, when we look at the impact on talent out of all of these trends, there are two that really stand out. One is the digitalization and what it does to the nature of work and the kind of work we need. And the other one is the demographic shifts. These are the ones that are, as we see, in seism, or when we have earthquakes, these are the tectonic forces, as we call them. On one side, digitalization is changing the pace of change, of course, with the technology advancement. When the technology exists, it creates now two kinds of roles that needs to be there. One that creates, maintains, and utilizes the technology. The other one is more service in nature and creative. It's more connected to the user and how they use it and how they experience the technology and what it does for them. And that is creating, of course, the need for new specialized skills. Some of it is technical, but also some of it is more creative, is more solving complex problems, it's more interpersonal. And so this is what the expectation is from the people in the 21st century. The second one is the demographics one, and I mentioned that with the increase in life expectancy, people are living longer, but also for the first time in history, what we are observing on a global level is a difference between the number of people exiting the labor market versus the number of new joiners, meaning there are more people retiring than ones entering the job market. And that is also causing some kind of skill shortages that organizations and governments need to take care of. And one way to actually bridge that gap or to cover that skill shortage is also to look at the immigrant workforce. And the immigrant workforce that comes, let's say, meaning importing this talent to your country, to your organization to fill this skills shortage. However, that also brings, a lot of diverse perspective with it and how we manage that workforce diversity and complexity of the contingency, the gig workers, and so on, in a way that, works for our government and our organizations. Now, if we zoom into the UAE specific country profile, we see that the shifts that we are seeing on a global level are not different in the UAE. So here are some of the emerging jobs in the UAE. So a focus on really specialized skills, data analysts, data scientists, AI and machine learning specialists, digital transformation specialists, and so on and so forth. But we also see a decline in roles that are more repetitive in nature, something that the robot can take care of or even the AI can take care of. So administrative, data booking, data keeping, etc. Everything that can be automated, we see already a shift in decline. And on the other side, we look at the importance of emerging skills. So when we talk about, let's say, the importance of analytical thinking, innovation, complex problem solving, critical analysis, active learning, and so on. So all of these are skills that we all as organizations need to start building if we haven't already done so or haven't thought about it yet. Now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So this is the impact of digitalization on the UAE, right? If we look at the impact of the other tectonic shift, when we look at increase in life expectancy, I want to give you a very quick example of what happened in Japan and then bring it home to the UAE. In Japan, in the 1960s, 150 citizens reached the age of 100 years. And so what the government did, they gave each one of them a silver plate as a gift. Guess what? In 2014, they were 30,000. In 2015, they stopped the practice of giving gifts. So if you lead a healthy life, COVID impact aside, and if you are really taking care of your health, 50% of the children born in Japan today are expected to live 110 years in the future. Now, if we zoom this back to the UAE, today the average life expectancy in the UAE is 78.47, if I'm not mistaken. But this was actually already an increase from 2020, where the average life expectancy was only 78. If we project this 10 years from now, it's increasing to 88. What I'm trying to say is while people live longer, they will have longer careers. So how do we redefine and reinvent ourselves, knowing that we will live longer, knowing that, maybe we don't want to retire that early. So how do we really rebuild those skills that are most in need to adapt and thrive in the new world? So in order to prepare for that, our relationship with learning and work need also to significantly change. So think about, we need to move away from the traditional three-stage life model where people, let's say, go to school, go to university, earn a diploma, they work all their life in one specific career, and then they retire and they die بعد عمر طويل يعني. But the new approach should embed lifelong learning into our DNA. And, when the key here is every time there is a change, we need to really be equipped and be open, and that's very important to be open, to unlearn and relearn new skills. And this is what is important. So people will work, will learn, then there is a change, they will learn and work again until they retire. And this is very nice. I like this saying from Alvin Toffler. He is really one of the most renowned futurists in the US. He mentioned that the illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write, but actually those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And the future belongs to the lifelong learners. And that's really one of the key messages of today on how to prepare for the future of work. And in that same context, our thinking about careers should also change. So again, in the same way that we move away from lifelong learning, from the three stages of a life, career, our traditional approach to career as well need to also change, in the sense that in the past, I would learn, graduate, take a job, and then expect that my career will grow gradually through a ladder. I will get bigger title, I will get more money. But what is happening today, because jobs are very fluid, things are changing very quickly, the new approach is also a little bit more fluid, and it's more about relevancy and experiences, meaning that people will move from one project to another, earning sometimes, gaining new experiences, making sure that whatever skills they build are relevant for the next stage. Sometimes they may earn less, sometimes they may earn more, but the driving force is really to stay engaged and to stay relevant as they gain experiences. So I know this might sound a little bit, difficult to imagine or to swallow or to digest, but I think we need to be open to all possibilities. And so how do we really future-proof our career? So with these new skills, new charters, new technologies, new leadership, how do we really get ready? And what is actually the future of work all about? Do we know? Well, actually, the future is not written yet. And it's impossible to foresee the future because, it depends on action we take, on decision we make. But what we can do today is really to be better prepared to adapt. And rather than worrying about, let's say, digitization taking over roles, is actually thinking about what can we be hopeful about and how can we prepare ourselves to a world that belongs to the learners. Any questions? Or should we leave the questions till the end? I'm going to go through it and then we leave the questions to the end. So to really prepare for the future, we need to think about what does businesses and governments require from us today. So in order to secure success today and in the future, it's about performance and it's about sustainability. And performance and sustainability depend and starts with our own people. What does it mean building a sustainable workforce? It's making sure that our employees are aligned, they are engaged, but they are also properly skilled. And they have the right tools and resources and also the culture to thrive on change rather than be afraid and crippled with it. Now, while digitization is really impacting the future of work, many or 79% of the CEOs say that, the availability of those skills is one of their biggest threats for the future, but also working on upskilling and reskilling their workforce is one of the ways to overcome that. So for organizations to be able to really create that environment, there are really for this lifelong learning or to prepare for adaptability, there are 4 important elements that needs to be addressed. On one side, really giving the employees the time, opportunity, but also the motivation to build those new capabilities, what's in it for them, why this is important. Second is to help them identify the knowledge, the skills, and the experiences that they need to work on, whether actually to develop for the next career move or in the current one. Third is really giving them access to the development resources they need to build their skills. And lastly, it's about the culture, creating that environment really that supports employee development with the focus on the role of leaders in promoting and developing employees. And here, leadership will play a crucial role, and there is a very, very big focus on the new leadership DNA in the world of work. We're not going to cover it today, maybe in a future session. And so this is from an organization perspective. Now, from an employee perspective, for them to thrive in the future of work, they need to have the skill set, the tool set, as well as the mindset to be able to learn and continuously develop. Which one do you think is the most difficult to acquire? Mindset. Absolutely. And it all starts with people's mindset. And here, I think mindset is important both at the individual level and how the organization actually enables that shift in mindset from what we call, or what Carol Dweck's calls, a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. So people with fixed mindset thinks that, you know, their abilities is exactly what they have today, that really they don't need to make the extra effort to learn, and then they stay stuck, and when change or disruption or the need, you know, to adjust skills comes, then it's very difficult for them to change or to move. While people with growth mindset are much more open, they see in failure as an opportunity, or even in any change as an opportunity. They believe in feedback, they don't take it personal, and they like to try new things. And this is the kind of mindset we want to instill in our organizations and in our workforce. So on one side, we need to provide the tools, the environment, and we want to ensure that people are open to learning and to change, because this is going to be the new psychology of success in the future of work. So when we think about all of this and take it to the learning, and how do we enable this lifelong learning, from an organization perspective, there are two extreme spectrums when it comes to learning. One that is really top-down and governed learning, so whatever we want employees, regardless of in which department, to complete from a compliance perspective, from, I don't know, code of ethics perspective. And this is what we call on one side what the people have to learn. But today, in order to unleash organizational capabilities, we need to enable, as organizations, the other extreme of learning, the other extreme of the spectrum, in which people want to learn. And when we talk about what people want to learn, it's actually opening it up and looking at what people's interests are beyond the scope of the current role. I know it's a bit different from our traditional way of thinking, but it is really one way of, one way of approaching this differently is the way forward. I give you an example. During the pandemic, the traditional approach of looking at talent is through, you know, assessing people based on job-related competencies, right? And so when the pandemic hits, we've seen a lot of heroes and a lot of new skills emerge that were not seen through our traditional, talent management approach. Why? Because, we were looking at people only in a box. And now we have to broaden and to have a better visibility over the skills and the capabilities that we have in the organization. And while, learning happens through on-the-job learning, peer-to-peer learning in 20%, and formal learning, we have really to facilitate connecting people with the different avenues of learning. And this is possible by really understanding who people are and how they want to become. So what does it mean? It's looking at the employee beyond just the box of the role. On one side, at the center, this is what we call the whole self model. At the center is really the employee themselves, their experiences, their skills, their education, and what they have done so far. But also we look also in the middle at their strength and their styles. So for example, how do they like to work? Do they like to work in teams? Do they not? Do they prefer to work remote or not? And so on. And also then the third layer is their expressive preferences, meaning what are their motivations? What are their aspirations? When people are open about their aspirations, their motivation, their strength, and also whatever they bring into the table beyond the competencies of the role, we as an organization, we will have a better visibility on how to tap into this different talent at moments when it's required. And we're also opening it up for the employees to match these aspirations with what the organization needs. So it really brings the best of both worlds together in order to prepare for a brighter future. I want to show you very quickly the role that technology can also do in this. Let's say, for example, I'm someone who are interested in agile project management. And today, it's not part of my role because I'm in accounting, but I would like to learn more. So if this is, let's say, coming up and there is someone on maternity or paternity leave and there is an opportunity for me to join in a fellowship in that department, this is going to help cross-pollination of talent, broaden my perspective, help me learn new skills. And so at some point in time, if the organization needs more agile project managers, then they are available and they are visible. To summarize, when we look at the whole self model and our redefinition of talent, taking into consideration everything that we have spoken about before, the learning preferences, the learning approaches, but also what is happening in the future of work, and how do we really leverage the power of technology to help us connect the dots between what the organization is looking for and also what the employees are bringing to the table, surfacing those recommendations in a much more, in a much more timely manner for those employees. It helps us on one side, ensure that we skill the workforce for the future based on their interests, but also our organization need. It helps us also create that level of agility to really be ready for any kind of disruption and change, and also to be able to cater to the needs of our diverse workforce. So with that, I think I'm going to leave you with the 3 key things to remember. One is the future is not yet written. So we really need to manage for adaptability, creating that environment where people can thrive and build that opportunity marketplace where the need of the organization and the expressive skills of the individuals are more visible, so we really can balance the demand and the skills supply in a much more strategic way. The future belongs to the lifelong learners, so it's important for us as organizations really to provide the platform, the tools, but most importantly, the environment to encourage or to build this growth mindset and enable this lifelong learning DNA. And lastly, it's really the importance of data and the ability to be able to be agile, bringing dynamics team together, really looking at the skills and having a better visibility overall of the talent that we have and how we can leverage that. So with that, I'm going to pause and ask if you have any questions. Yes.
شكرا على البرزنتيشن الرائع. احنا محتاجين نعرف اكثر عن المستقبل، نستعد للمستقبل. والشكر الخاص ايضا السلايد الخاص بالجروث مايند سيت والتست مايند سيت، وهذه لازم نفكر فيها. ولما نشوف نحن فكر صاحب اسمه الشيخ محمد بن راشد دائما نشوف في جانب الجروث. لما في دوله مثل دوله الامارات، في اماره حيويه مثل اماره دبي، اعتقد نحن امامنا مشوار طويل للبناء. ما زلنا بنينا شيء ونحتاج بنبني للمستقبل اشياء اكثر واكثر. ولا شك ان خطه الدي 33 اللي اعلنت قريبا تعطي طموح اكبر لكل القطاعات داخل الاماره، ومن ضمنها القطاع الحكومي. نحن في الموارد البشريه وفي ملتقى مثل هذا الموارد البشريه في تحدي امام موضوع السكيلز اللي موجوده. في الوقت اللي تطلع اليوم عندنا في يعني سكيل سيتس جديده طلعت، خاصه بوست البانديميك اللي صارت. نحن عندنا مثل ما شرحتي ان في شورتج اصلا في السكيلز، عندنا شورتج في الليدرشيب أيضا على، وهذا يمكن قد تكون أزمة عالمية أعتقد. ففي هذه المرحلة اللي نحن فيها فعلا في وضعية مش سهلة في التعامل مع هذا الموضوع. لو أنا عندي يعني تكنولوجي طالع جديد والسكيلز جاهزة الأمر أسهل، لكن عندي شورتج في السكيلز وفي نفس الوقت في ايمرجينج تكنولوجي وتتطور، أضيف عليها عملية التغير السريع. يعني حتى التكنولوجيا اللي نشوفها جالسة تتغير. يعني اليوم من الأسبوعين الماضيات كان في كلام كثير عن الشات جي بي تي. وشو الشات جي بي تي يمكن يسوي؟ نكتشف اليوم أن المدى ماله مفتوح جدا. يعني اليوم المهارات الكتابية اللي موجودة عند الناس، اليوم القدرة اللي موجودة في تكنولوجي مثل هذه يعني شيء فظيع. يعني يهدد العمل في الجامعات، العمل في أيضا في الأمور مثل الاستشارية القانونية، كتابة الأبحاث. أنا اطلعت على بيبر نشرت قبل يمكن شهرين أو ثلاثة عن موضوع الأوراق البحثية اللي تقدم في الاي اي، تصل إلى 4000 ورقة بحثية شهريا. طيب أنا سألت الأخ اللي أعطاني البحث هذا، قلت له منو بيقرأ هذا؟ قال لي AI نفسه يقرأ لك ويقول لك شوفي هذا هذه البيبرز نفسها. لما نشوف هذا كله نعتقد أن اليوم العالم يعني نحن نعرف أنه يتغير ونتكلم، التغير حاصل، وإذا نحن ما تداركنا أنفسنا وتحركنا مع هذا التغير بيحصل يعني، ونحن فاتنا شيء كثير منه. أنا يمكن السؤال اللي أبغى أسأله، عملية اليوم يوم نشوف الفول تايم جوب مع الجيج ايكونومي مع الفريلانسنج، وين تشوفون موضوع المستقبل هذه الانواع من الوظائف التقليديه اللي استمرت سنين؟ ولما شرحتي في الشارت عمليه الهيراركي لما يمشي في خطوات السلم هذه، يعني الفرصه اليوم اكبر. unleashing الكابابيلتيز اللي عند الناس، اعتقد نحتاج فيه يعني تصورت عن مستقبل القالب نفس اليوم اللي نشوفه جوب. هل المستقبل ما بيكون عندنا في جوبز؟ يمكن نطلع إلى شيء ثاني. في ناس يتكلمون عن اليوم إنه في المستقبل بيكون في رولز، ما أتكلم عن جوب، وفي مانجمنت وفي ابروفلز وهيراركي وأشياء مثل تي. شو تشوفون في المستقبل يمكن يكون موجود؟
So, thank you for the question. I think one of the things that I mentioned is our definition of talent need to change. يعني اليوم التالنت بطل بس محصور بالفول تايم employees، لأنه rise in the gig workers has been increasing in percentage actually over the past 10 years or decade، لدرجة إنه هلأ بنشوف in a lot of industries 60% of the job is done by gig workers or contractors and so on, and the smaller part is done by our full-time employees. So how do we manage the total workforce? And even if they are not part of our headcount, so-called today, they are still part of the talent pool that we want to tap into at any point in time to drive execution or to build for the future. Sometimes you might build dynamic teams that are, and this is what we see things are going, that it's not only about, let's say, what you do in your box anymore, but the cross collaboration and bringing people with different skills and perspective in order to build something new is going to be the way forward, and we need to be able to facilitate this. هلا, you mentioned something also at the beginning in terms of اليوم في عنا skill shortage, في عنا skill visibility, and so on. One of the biggest challenges sometimes is, on one side, is to have all the data in one place to be able to have the visibility, to drive, let's say, a little bit more of consistency in the approach in terms of data completeness, data quality. بس اليوم ال AI, even when the data does not exist, okay, sometimes even just from the role and the role and what the person has actually studied, they can come up with inferred skills. يعني اوكي بيقول انه هيدا الشخص حتى لو انا ما عندي CV تبعه بيقول لي انه اوكي based on the experience, based on the job, this person is most likely having those skills. And sometimes also because of the skill shortage, sometimes بعطيك example airline. هلا ما خصوا بالgovernment, but just to give you an illustration. اليوم airlines suffered big time during the pandemic. After the pandemic, they had to recruit. Nobody wanted to come back, or at least, they were hesitant. And the same thing in the hospitality industry. So they started to look at people with peripheral skills, not exactly having worked in airlines or in hospital, but they might have, for example, the right customer mindset. And this has widened their approach to where we acquire talent from and how easy it is for us to build those capabilities and those skills. So they're all interconnected, but it starts really with having the visibility and the data to be able to connect the dots from that perspective. I hope I answered the question. Any other question? Yes.
يعني السؤال، هل الفيوتشر جوبز فقط في الاي تي سيكتور؟ لان احنا عندنا مثلا في كل القطاعات، كل قطاع له شيء معين. احنا الحين مثلا معظم الناس مفكره ان فقط الاي تي هو الفيوتشر جوبز.
لا،
زين في كل قطاع كل واحد يبغى يتطور، كل واحد فيه تطور خاص فيه.
اكيد يعني. اكيد. هلا what is important هو الديجيتال literacy. اوكي؟ meaning انه اليوم انا مش مطلوب مني انه اكون an IT expert or a data analyst or a data security expert حتى الاقي شغل in the future. But what is important is to have a minimum data or digital literacy to be able to work alongside the technology. يعني اليوم أنا وياك عم نستعمل التكنولوجي every day, to order food, to order a ride, or even to do some basic stuff. ما بروح على البنك أنا if I want to make a transaction. So the technology is shaping every role in different ways or form. The thing is, it is not. In some cases, it might eliminate roles. شفنا بالاشياء repetitive, and that will be automated. But in most of the cases, it will change what actually the people are expected to deliver in the role. So they have to work alongside the technology. Technology is going to augment what people can do. So اللي منشوفه إنه in the future, there will be more focus on relationships, on creativity, on complex problem solving, and on the importance of digital literacy. But maybe the next speaker will also cover that in more details. But it's not only about IT, but it's knowing how to work alongside the technology. I know the future is not going to be only human or robots. It's actually human and robots working side by side, and the technology augmenting the human capabilities. Does that answer the question? Anything else? If not, I thank you very much for your attention, and I will be staying here for the next hour or so, to complete the session. So if you have any question towards the end, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.